Hey everybody, welcome again. Thank you for joining. My name is Simran and I am with Canopy. Canopy is a co-working space based in San Francisco. I'll put our website in the chat box later. Today we have Lara Park Menning again, and we're going to be doing the second installment of the three-part series where she's going to be talking about leading with purpose. We'll open this up to Q&A after, so you can either put your question in the chat box, or you can digitally raise your hand, and I'll put those instructions also for you to read. All right, Lara, all you.
Great. Thank you so much, Simran. I'm just going to share a little slide deck as well, so you don't just have to look at me the whole time. But I'm delighted to be with all of you today. It's great to see you. I originally, when Simran and I had planned this, of course, it was to be in person, but I'm also grateful for the opportunity to be able to see people who are perhaps much farther away, as I can see some of you are. So as Simran said, my name is Lara Park Menning, and I'm founder of Larasah. And our mission at Larasah is to empower entrepreneurs and professionals to experience success in their careers and in their lives without burnout. Prior to starting Larasah, I co-founded 6 years ago Nucleo Life Sciences, which is a growing pharmaceutical company right here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I know firsthand that being an entrepreneur is an incredibly rewarding experience. It's exciting being your own boss and defining a vision and seeing that through to fruition. But it's also a profession that's high stress. And prior to that, I also had a professional career in pharmaceutical development. So that was here in the Bay Area at such companies like Genentech Roche, in Canada at Patheon Thermo Fisher, and even in the south of France at Laboratoire Pierre Fabre. So I also empathize with the challenges of growing your career and balancing your vision for your life as well. So actually, I'd love to know if we can get familiar a little bit with the Zoom function of raising your hands. How many of you that are here today are professionals? And I'm leaning on Simran. See if I don't think I can see that.
I'm just putting in the instructions as to how to raise a hand.
Perfect. Yes, of course. I know. Eventually, we're all going to be Zoom experts, but yeah. Even if you have your video, we can use it.
So basically, in the participant, in your participant icon at the bottom of the screen, click on that, and at the bottom you'll see an icon saying "Raise Hand." I see that Celia and Jeff have both, and Marie, they're all raising their hands right now.
Great, lovely, thank you. And then how many of you are entrepreneurs?
Chad, Jeff's hand is still raised, so let me, so Chad's an entrepreneur.
Great, lovely. And then the rest of you, there's probably a multitude of professions and I'd love to know more, but if you want to, you can add it in the chat and we can look at that later. But I'm delighted to have you here with us today. So why was I talking about the importance of stress? Well, in 2019, the World Health Organization actually declared occupational burnout as an epidemic. So before we were dealing with this pandemic, there was already this chronic workplace stress that was having implications on professionals and around the world. And in addition, Forbes conducted a study where they concluded that 100% of entrepreneurs experience burnout. So there are rewards, but there are stresses as well. And you may have heard that it is important to manage your burnout so that you feel more fulfilled in your work and your life. But did you know that failing to manage your stress has a major implication on your bottom line, your company's bottom line, or any company's bottom line? It not only affects your performance at work, it can also cause you to not communicate effectively with investors to ensure your company is adequately funded. It can cause you to hire an underperforming team or attract or lose the high performers that bring the most value to your company. It can cause you to attract difficult clients, which rob your ability of having a fulfilling personal life. And it can drain your energy, which will drain your bank account and your company's revenues. And what we're going to be talking about specifically today is stress can also cause you to agonize over decisions and lose momentum and possibly lose out on opportunities that take too long to jump into. So in this presentation, I'll be sharing with you the 5 key areas that we need to strengthen in order to experience sustainable success. So last time, for those of you who were there with us in part 1 of this 3-part series, we talked about emotional fluency, and that's one of the 5 key areas. And today, we're diving into leading with purpose. So you're going to walk away from this workshop with some practical tools that you can implement right away, and you'll discover how you have purpose blind spots that are leading to poor decision-making or suboptimal decision-making, and you're going to become a stronger, more successful leader. So in light of the current global situation, you may have found that you've had to make, your life has been turned upside down. Or perhaps you've already had to make some critical decisions about your business. Maybe without a commute, you found a little bit more time to do the things you love, or you found that that time has completely disappeared and you're looking to regain some focus. Or maybe you've been daydreaming about making some major decisions, some major changes, but you're unsure of what is the best decision to make. So here at Larasah, we train and support entrepreneurs and professionals to get clearer on what is really aligned with their ideal life, career, and relationships. And when you focus on these 5 key areas, you'll become a stronger leader in your companies, in your business, your communities, and your homes. So to start, we have body vitality, which is movement and nutrition. Second is calm mind, which includes meditation and sleep. And the third is stress support, which includes practices you will actually do in order to relieve stress when you need it the most, because they're personalized practices. Then there's balanced emotions, which we talked about last time with emotional fluency. And finally, aligned purpose, which is closely connected to productivity and decision-making. So you may already be working on some of these areas, maybe body vitality or calm mind, but the key is to work on all 5 to experience sustainable success. And I know from experience and the science. So most people, when they meet me, they can feel my passion. I love life, and I'm naturally curious about a variety of topics, and I love to create. This is why this is my 2nd company as well. In 2014, I founded and a privately owned and funded business, which was actually with my spouse, and it allowed us to have a meaningful impact on our clients, which were pharmaceutical companies. We were focusing on developing challenging projects, challenging drugs with a high unmet need. And then it also allowed us to have a great lifestyle. We worked together, traveled together, and when we were small, we were able to work remotely as well. Having a lab means that we also need to stay put. And we've been a profitable company, so the company is still in business and have been since the first month. And we've enjoyed repeat business due to our reputation and quality work, with 90% referrals, repeat business, and a consistent growth over the last 6 years. So when we talk about productivity, I've always prided myself in being a highly productive person. I multitasker, running global meetings on challenging projects, and then as an entrepreneur, you learn to wear lots of hats. In fact, when it was just the two of us when we first started, it was sharing an 8-foot lab bench here in San Francisco in an incubator, gowned up in lab coat and glasses, taking care of everything that wasn't experimentation. And as we grew, the number of hats I was wearing grew. And in 2017, I was wearing too many hats, and I started to see some health challenges from being the chief operating officer, the chief financial officer, the head of HR, and watching our team grow. And I'll never forget the visit to the doctor's office where he said, "Lara, you really need to talk to your boss about reducing your stress and reducing your workload." Yeah, I was my own worst enemy. And so after laughing with him, I realized, of course, that I needed to make some adjustments. And as I mentioned before, when we work on some of the areas, I had great nutrition, and I was already doing regular yoga and some meditation, but the whole picture, there was something missing. And I actually decided to, the timing was right, a coach actually reached out to me, and I thought, why not? You know, sometimes having another person's perspective that's unbiased can allow you to see where you can do things differently. And she changed my perspective on productivity. I changed my evaluation on what a productive day, month, and year looked like for me. And when I made those shifts and changed that to be more aligned with what are my, what am I doing that's really aligned with my goals, with the company's full vision, where are there changes that I can make? And that productivity yardstick I had was burning me out. So that realization changed productivity, not only personally, but also within the company. And we became really clear when we hired people about making sure that their purpose was also aligned, not only with the company's mission, but with the role that we were bringing them on for. And I can tell you that not only did I feel better, my energy levels rose, and the company revenues also rose. And so that brings me, vision and purpose can change. And as I mentioned, you may be noticing there are changes in your life right now that have drawn you to talk about, to listen in on this workshop today. And as they shift, you can make changes. And I actually, as I focused more clearly on what parts of my role brought me, were most aligned with purpose, I changed to a more strategic advisor role at Nucleo Life Sciences and decided to found this company because I wanted to support and guide others to live a life that felt good and was successful in the conventional metrics as well. So purpose, we hear about this in other realms, but why does it matter? Well, purpose conventionally is thought of as, or defined as being the reason why something is done, created, or the reason for which something exists. But did you know that adults that have a greater sense of purpose in life report better emotional well-being, physical health, and experience less risk for cognitive decline? That's right. So there's actually a scientific publication by Dr. Patricia Boyle and her colleagues at Rush University that where they followed 900, and there's multiple articles in this as well, that have shown that 900 patients, or subjects who are at high risk for dementia, they followed them and found that those that identified a purpose in life outside of themselves we were only half as likely to develop Alzheimer's. So purpose can have an implication on your health too. In terms of success metrics, research has indicated that Purpose predicts greater income and net worth, and even beyond, of course, predictive factors like demographics and personality traits. And then as a business leader, when staff feel connected to a greater sense of purpose, they have higher engagement, and they also, retention increases significantly. In fact, a Gallup study indicated that highly engaged teams were responsible for 21% greater profitability. So you can see how purpose has high value psychologically, physically, and even economically. But here's some great news. No matter how purposeful you feel your life is right now, it's one with a little focus and curiosity that is easy to make big shifts on. So I'd like to pause and check in with a little assessment. So here we have, I have 4 statements, and I'd like you to take a moment and write down your level of agreement with these 4 statements. And 1 means I don't agree with this at all. I feel like I have no level of agreement with this. And 10 being absolutely 100%, I feel this way.
And you can write it down in the chat box.
That'd be great. So first statement is, I wake up on Monday feeling energized about my week. Rate yourself from 1 to 10. So then the next one is, I can name my core values. And what are your top 3? Maybe you know nothing, you don't know them at all, so you're like a 1, and a 10 would be absolutely, I know them and I live. And then number 3, I have clear goals for my life and work. So 1 being maybe you have goals that are clear in your life, but not necessarily in work, or vice versa. Or none at all for 1, and then 10 is absolutely clear for both of those areas. And then I consistently make and track progress on these goals. So rate yourself from 1 to 10. Just a moment. Great to see. Thanks for entering that in the chat. We see some high levels here and some lower ones. Great. That's great. It's very good for this to have some indication because that's really important when we talk about the decision-making framework. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. All right. So if you look at your personal lowest and highest score for a moment, and maybe think of any areas in your life where you felt some dissatisfaction. Can you see how maybe your lowest score ties in with that event or activity? So I reassure you that we all come to the table with different levels, and this has been shaken up recently, and it's an excellent time to take stock and to review and reevaluate. You may be noticing that there were things that were really important to you before that are no longer important to you, and vice versa. Things that you never realized were so important to you, and you want to make sure that you have more of that in your life. So how does purpose and decision-making connect? Well, I can tell you on a professional level that when I've needed to pivot in my business and change direction, trusting the companies and my personal goals and core values made it easier to know whether the change was a great and aligned business decision or an opportunity for growth, or whether it was just a risky, draining, and expensive distraction. So before I jump into the framework, I would like to address two emotions. And the first, you can guess, is fear. Now, our life is a series of decisions. And over time, they create and shape our life. It's incredibly important to understand the underlying factors that are influencing our decisions and therefore our life. So first, fear. We all experience it, and fearlessness is not, courage is not fearlessness. They're not the same thing. In fact, it's important to feel the fear, hear its message, and then pursue your decision once you've made it, in spite of that. And we'll be talking about the physiology of fear a little bit next time and the implications on one's health of stress. But today we're just going to talk about some fundamentals. And recently we've all plunged down at some point in the last 8 or so weeks, the pyramid of needs. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Abraham Maslow and his hierarchy of needs, but there are he theorized that there, as he studied human needs and human motivation, there are these underlying needs that need to be met in order to function as humans optimally. So, of course, there are physiological needs, safety needs, love and belonging, esteem, and then self-actualization. And he theorized that this was in order to meet the higher order needs, you must meet the lower ones. So for instance, if you don't have food or water or shelter, it is difficult to start thinking about self-growth. And this can be presented also, this is a presentation of Clayton Alderfer, because sometimes we're not necessarily just doing these one after the other, we're addressing them in parallel as well. But you can see our levels of satisfaction increase the higher up the pyramid we go, or to the right, and that frustration and fear we can feel as we regress to the left. So I just want to pause and also recognize that all of you that are here with us, because the fact that you are able to take the time to work on your self-growth and self-actualization, which is what we're talking about in this presentation or today, says a lot about you. So it demonstrates you're not in the majority and you are definitely a leader. So you have the capacity and desire to grow in these times. So thank you so much for being here with us today. So why is fear dangerous when you're making decisions? Well, you've probably heard of when you're in stress mode, we're fight, flight, or fear. We have those responses, or freeze or responses. And that can result in suboptimal decision making. So when you're fighting with a decision, you're overthinking, you're wrestling with a decision over and over for a long period of time. If you are in flight mode, you're thinking more short term. So you're thinking more about just safety needs or security needs, as opposed to how this aligns with the bigger picture for your life, for your career, for your situation beyond the just now. And then freeze mode, well, that's delayed decision making. And the irony about delayed decision making is that decisions actually become harder over time. The complexity can compound. So if you are feeling fear, I invite you to stop and ask yourself, what is this telling me? Because fear can be generally divided into two categories. One is inadequacy, and the other is insignificance. So in the realm of inadequacy, those are all the lovely thoughts like the belief you're not good enough, that you'll be rejected, that you'll regret the time you're spending on devoting to a decision or goal, the fear that you will fail. And these are completely human fears, but the antidote is the confidence, building that confidence that you can figure it out. Humans are incredibly resilient, and we can, we know that we're not alone. We can have support, and we can also figure out whatever challenge we're in. And then insignificance is very much that human fear is tied into purpose. And the easy way to resolve that is to ask yourself as a leader, how are you looking to serve your team, your organization, your customer, or your community? And to focus on that. When you're focused on contribution, you can easily overcome that fear, or more easily overcome that fear. So fear, we know, is not the best place to be making decisions, but perhaps you're saying, okay, great, I understand I have needs, I have subconscious drives making that are underlying my decision-making, but this purpose question, how do I get closer to understanding this? I may understand this, what my role is at work, I may understand my mission for my company, but this question of purpose, I mean, mystics have talked about this a lot too. So the interesting thing is that there is an emotion of purpose, and that is the emotion of joy. So joy is an incredible metric for us. And joy can be things as simple as pleasure with the five senses. It can be amusement. It can be excitement. It can be relief. And it can also be wonder and gratitude and bliss. And there's a quote that I love in the Book of Joy, which was co-written with the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He talks about joy more globally and what it is and it isn't. And Desmond Tutu says, discovering more joy does not, I'm sorry to say, save us from the inevitability of hardship and heartbreak. In fact, we may cry more easily, but we will laugh more easily too. Perhaps we are just more alive. Yet as we discover more joy, we can face suffering in a way that ennobles rather than embitters. We can have hardship without becoming hard. And we can have heartbreak without becoming broken. And so as we align with this feeling of joy, this feeling of purpose, it doesn't mean that we're going to be in ease every day. And it does mean that as we pursue these goals and are of service to others, and we encounter challenges, we just have more clarity and more calm. And I invite you, if this feels a little bit strange, I invite you to start by noticing the little things that bring you joy, like the cup of coffee or tea, the sound of a songbird, being out in nature, but also accomplishing what tasks or projects really bring you joy. And when I work with clients, I get this a lot too. Come on, Lara, is it selfish to pursue joy? There are things that I have to do. And this is true, but can you remember, just for me, with me right now, a time when you took on an extra project and you did it out of obligation instead of desire? Do you think your colleagues could tell? Did you do your best work? Or did you regret it? And if you choose to be supportive, thanks so much for responding, yeah. So if you choose to do it, I invite you to do it out of joy. Like if you choose to be supportive, do it from joy. But you can also support in other ways. Sometimes you're the key contributor, and sometimes you can be an advisor on the sidelines, or even just supportive and more like a cheerleader and behind the scenes. And it's not, what I'm talking about is not completely hedonistic either. It's not about being selfish all the time. or it's about balancing when you're giving from a place that feels more aligned. It's so powerful when you align your unique gifts and talents in a way that serves your mission, your team, and your community, whether it's local or global. And yes, sometimes we have to do things, but you can actually fine-tune what you're working on and what you're doing to do more of the things that bring you joy. And you'll see how that affects your relationships too. It's really important that you don't feel like you're doing something and then they owe you, or there's resentment, that there's an equal exchange. All right, so how are we doing so far? Are we ready to look into the framework? So remember that knowing your values, your core values, is really helpful, and knowing your goals is helpful as well. So when you're sitting down to a decision, you want to be able to first write that down and see which goal or values this is aligned with, but particularly the goal. And this is important to actually write this down, because either if it's on paper or virtually, a lot of the times when we think about making a decision just in our heads, that's when things get a little murky. So write it down, step one. And then the second step is to use your head. So you want to collect data from reliable sources. And I say reliable because you want to be consulting either experts or esteemed colleagues or peers that actually have experience in the area that you're making a decision on. You want to look at the data, financial, scientific, depending on what the decision is, even if it's more a life or relational, the emotional, psychological data as well, depending on the breadth of the topic. So 2, you want to be using in your mind. Then I invite you to listen to the heart. So what is good for me? What is good for those around me and on my team? What's good for my company? And then what's good for others generally? So when you're making these larger decisions, what if this showed up on a headline on your news app or in the newspaper, could you stand behind it? And that's where it's really important to tie that into your core values. Then you want to make that decision. And you want to know, do you feel expansive or contracted? And this may feel a little strange to be talking about this concept of expansive or contracted. But in the last presentation, when we talked about emotional fluency, we actually realized that scientific data shows that emotions are felt in the body. So you can tap into how you're feeling about this. You're feeling fearful, or you're feeling joy, or wherever on the spectrum of emotion you find yourself. And you can start to pull apart where you're making the decision from. So if you're feeling fearful, fine. I invite you to be creative and write out that worst case scenario. Go all the way, it's just on paper. So you let your imagination run wild, or look at what other scenarios have happened, and when you look at the data, and then you want to write down the steps of how you would recover from that situation. But in order to be balanced, if you're going to go there, I invite you also to do a best case scenario. And I found this to be very interesting, because sometimes when we focus just on the worst case scenario, we don't look at all the potential upside as well. So then once you've analyzed that and you've felt into your decision, the last step, and this is so important, you don't want to be stuck in freeze mode. You want to act on your decision. So indecision is an energy drain. Once you've made a decision, align with it, commit, and go. It's so important you can always refer back to this framework. That's why I recommend that you write it down. And so you understand, why did I make this decision if it's ever, if you're ever concerned or questioning later. But it's so important to commit and make that decision. It's liberating. So are there any questions on the framework before I go into a case study? No? Good. I like to give practical, simple, straightforward tools. So hopefully this is helpful for you. And it's been helpful for my clients. So overarching, this is the decision: do I stay or do I leave? An overarching topic, because so many of the decisions that we make in life fit into this large bucket. For instance, do I stay in my current position or do I leave for somewhere else? Do I stay working for an organization or do I start my own business? Do I stay in a relationship or is it time to leave? Is it time to move to another country, to move homes? So many decisions we make fall into this. And I'd like to share with you a situation where I had a client that was trying to decide whether they should stay or leave their current position. So at the time, my client felt like she was stagnating when we first met. She was ready for a change, and she was looking to align with her passion for addressing climate change. She was working in the pharmaceutical industry, but she really was passionate about this. And she was looking for a change. So she, first off, she looked at speaking with different mentors that she had in the industry. She started looking at statistics on income and thought about contribution. And the company was in a stable financial position. And she knew that it was a large organization, so she knew there were opportunities for growth within the company as well. And she looked at positions also in companies with missions that were more aligned with developing solutions to address climate change. And she spent about 6 weeks researching this and talking to different individuals that were trusted and experienced. And then she looked into the heart. So what was feeling best for her? What was feeling best for her family, for her team? And she saw, this was harder for her. She was more used to being in the rational mind of why she should change positions. And so she actually saw, when she took the time to look at this, the advantages of being able to work from home regularly because she had young children. She also was able to travel, which she really enjoyed, and that opportunity existed in her current role. And she, as I mentioned previously, saw that there were other opportunities within the company. So when she looked at her passion, she realized that it was just at the beginning. She was really interested in climate change, but she hadn't, when she started researching the different companies, she didn't find one that was fully aligned with a solution she felt connected to. So in the end, she decided to stay for the next 18 months, but she changed roles. And so she decided to develop her leadership team skills by managing a larger team in a different department. And that would help her progress in her career regardless of whether she decided to stay and contribute within the current industry or shift industries. So I also want to share with you that there is actually a productivity activity you can do on how you can bring more joy into your current role. And it's, you can look at your schedule, and you can look at where you're spending your time. And if you're interested in that, you can send me either an email at coaching@larasah.com, or you can add your email into the chat too. I'm happy to share that with you. So any questions on that scenario? Maybe you resonate with it and maybe you don't want to say, but are there any questions on that example? well, I'm happy to send that to you.
It doesn't look like there are any.
Okay, great.
Let's share them privately.
Of course, and you can, and I thank you for sending those, and I'm happy to reach out. Great. Excellent. So I thought it would be fun because this is the most common question that I get as an entrepreneur. It's, how did you start your company? And yeah, please, you can keep sending, that's great. How did you start your company? How did you make the decision to leave a reputable corporation with a clear and a great mission to start your own company, and with your spouse, no less? So I use the same framework. So I decided, when we founded our company in February of 2014, and he started on his own first, and that we had to make two decisions, one in February and then in November. So in February, I decided to stay. But in November, that's when, because one of us had to have a stable position. But in November, I looked at the situation using my head. One, we already had some good clients. We were profitable, even though we were small, and we were at the cusp of growth. It was high risk and potential reward. And we really got our finances in order. So low debt, low monthly payments, really important, and grew a financial cushion over that time before we started. And so in terms of skills that we needed to learn, we already had expertise in our individual skills that we were offering to our clients, but we also, I had a willingness, both of us had a willingness to learn. And in my heart, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's something I'd always been drawn to. So I knew where my heart was. But it was really important for me to be aligned in the head as well. I was looking for freedom and a means to be creative. So for me, that meant creating systems and a culture and a team. And I had a unique vision to make more of a contribution in my own company than within a larger organization, just looking at the 5-year span of time. And from a family perspective, it's important when you're going to business with a family member of any kind. We talked about it and we were both on board. So I was ready to make the plunge. Take the plunge. And when I made that decision in February, I felt contracted. And so I realized it wasn't the right time. And we had more time to really, we didn't have the same client base, et cetera, et cetera. So, but in November, I felt expanded. And I will tell you that it wasn't easy, but I learned so much about myself, about my partner, and it was really enriching from a personal and financial perspective, just a lot of growth. So that was how I used this framework also to start both companies, actually. So are there any questions there? All right. If not, then I'm going to drive home some of the key things that we want to remember when we're making decisions. So the first one is to stop overthinking. One decision will not fundamentally change your life forever. You're just one decision away from making another change. And if you're unsure, you're still unsure after you've done this framework, I invite you to try it out. There's so many ways, depending on where you are in your career. You can do an internship. You can take a course. You can do a test project before you make the leap, which is a bit like what we did when we started Nucleo. So just try it out. And then there is no perfect timing. And I get this question a lot. When you make a decision, it brings you closer to your goal, and you can have more joy and more clarity just by making that decision. And I love this quote. It's a Chinese proverb. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. So if you are looking for any additional support, I'm happy to be there for you, and I'm happy to share that aligned purpose productivity worksheet that some of you sent your emails, so thank you. And I again really want to thank you for being committed to your growth and interest in enhancing your decision making and your leadership and getting more clarity in your life. And I'd love to hear from you. So in the meantime, I invite you to stay healthy and stay connected. And I'd love to know if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lara. So if anyone has any questions, go ahead and raise your hand or write your question in the box.
Good. Well, it looks like we'll be connecting after this with many of you, so I look forward to that. And next time, so this is a 3-part series, we will be diving into premium fuel for a calm mind. So I look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, there's actually one question that came up. Meg asked, are there any strategies for overthinking, or will that be covered in the next talk?
Strategies for overthinking. Great. So the key thing for overthinking, you want to be writing it down. Really allow yourself, because overthinking, if you're staying in the mind, you'll notice that a lot of your thoughts are actually repetitive. And so if you write them down, you can see them more clearly. And then you can, like, for instance, overthinking, are you talking about one particular thought or just multiple thoughts kind of cycling, Megs?
Meg, did you want to follow up with that question? There we go. Okay, you just said that the tip about writing things down is great, which I agree with, because I'm an overthinker. I think everyone's an overthinker.
Absolutely. We wrestle with our minds. Yeah, it's amazing. Meditation, yeah, we will touch on this in the next one too, but or it's one of the key areas about, it's amazing, unfortunately, how much we have repetitive thoughts too, but allowing it to come out onto paper. And I actually recommend paper. There are studies done to show that there really is a difference between when you putting the thoughts on a virtual piece of paper and putting them down on a real piece of paper. And sometimes just seeing them and that action can really help with that too. So I hope that helps you.
I see there's another question. Yan Gao, if you want to go ahead. Let me unmute you. Oh, there you go. You can go ahead. You're unmuted.
Thank you very much. Hi, Lara. Thank you very much for this amazing presentation. I really love it. Thank you very much. Yeah, I have a question here to ask. Maybe it's kind of general, but I really want to ask for a long time ago. Yeah, because you know me very well already before, right? Yeah, so I'm about to finish my PhD, maybe just 1 or 2 couple of months, yeah, maximum. But due to this COVID-19, something is unpredictable now, right? But like, I can't be patient, but everything is on board and ready to go.
Right.
Yeah, so I know, I don't have any startup idea yet, and that might be a goal maybe in like 10 years later or even further, right? Whenever I'm ready or like the timing is ready. So I was wondering, like, in order to start thinking about this, what kind of skills I need to learn to integrate, let's say for the financial aspect, perspective or law perspective or management or something like this.
Great question, huge question, because I know you're dialing in from, I'm assuming from Ireland tonight, is that right?
Oh yes, from Dublin, yes.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes. So there's so many questions that, and like when you talk about, there are some aspects that are international too. So where you actually start your company matters. So there's a whole aspect there. I think that the easiest way to address this question is to first, do you have a scientific idea? It depends what kind of role do you want to have in this company. Are you the creator? Are you the business mind? There's so many roles you can have as a founder as well. So in terms of, let's say, because I know your background, let's say you're the scientific mind. Well, you already need to have like a scientific idea. And it does come from, I invite you to maybe connect with like-minded people. Like for instance, when we started our company, there was the incubator and a lot of different business people, but maybe even in, there may be an association or an organization nearby where there are like-minded people, and you can connect that way too. Because one thing to remember is that you're never alone. Even though we talk about, we often think about the CEO of a company as being the hero of the company. It takes more than just one person to have success. So finding, connecting with people who have either done this, and I know you're asking me, but it's a big question to answer just now, but I invite you to connect with people who have that same kind of goal, and you can brainstorm. You have to be mindful. If you already have a scientific idea, there's also the whole IP aspect too. But in terms of just getting a feel for creating a nest egg, that's a whole other piece. But connect with people who are also interested in becoming entrepreneurs, and that create friendships and potential business partnerships.
That's perfect. Thank you very much. Thanks so much.
You're welcome, and good luck.
Are there any more questions? So this has been recorded. It'll be up on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page by the end of this week, hopefully by tomorrow. And yeah, keep an eye out for our newsletters, and that's where you'll be told when the next talk will be coming. We haven't really nailed down a date just yet, but you'll find out our newsletter when it's coming out. And Lara would also be sharing it with all of her network.
Absolutely. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Okay, we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.